Unlocking Your World of Creativity with best-selling author and brand innovator, Mark Stinson. This episode is brought to you by White Cloud Coffee Roasters, where every bean tells a story of adventure. Visit whitecloudcoffee.com and use the code CREATIVITY.
Welcome back, friends, to our podcast, Your World of Creativity, the show where we're exploring the creative journeys of innovators and artists and entrepreneurs all over the world. And today we're stamping our creative passport in one of my favorite European capitals, Copenhagen, Denmark. And I welcome Pia Leichter to the show. Pia, welcome.
Ooh, Mark, so nice to be here, live and direct from Copenhagen.
There you go. I just love it. Pia is a creative partner, a certified coach, a best-selling author, got all sorts of things going on. Founder of the Kollektiv Studio, and a very creative Danish spelling of collective. Yeah. We'll put that in the show notes. But Pia's work spans journalism and branding and design and really helping people with their creative transformations, and has a new book, Welcome to the Creative Club. It's a great title. It sounds like a lot of fun that you put it together, Pia.
Thanks. It was a lot of fun. And it's a bit tongue-in-cheek because the book smashes the myth that creativity is reserved for the chosen few and invites everyone to access and apply creativity to the design of their lives. So when I say welcome to the club, you've always been a member. The membership card has been in your back pocket.
Lifetime membership.
Exactly. You just need to remember the membership card is in your back pocket and then swipe it and flash it often.
I love that. One of the reviews called it part memoir, part manifesto, but a full-on invitation to get in there, be the creative director of your life.
Exactly. That's the invitation. And to remember that we are creatively directing our experience and that we are natural born creators. If you're a human, you're an artist at play.
One of the journeys that you described in the book that I really liked was the losing, the unlearning, the finding new power. What sort of stories did you hear yourself, or lived yourself, where you really had to unlearn some old creative blocks to reconnect with your creativity?
Oh man, there are a lot. There are a lot. I grew up with my father's an artist. He's an abstract painter. So I didn't hear some of the old stories about get a real job. The father would never say that.
Never had a real job either.
But I did see, as a little girl growing up, my dad was my hero because he always did what he loved. He made it possible to paint no matter what, which meant he would deal cards for the mob. He was a horse and buggy driver in Central Park. He was a security guard at the Met, a merchant marine. He did anything and everything to give him the space and time to paint. And for that, I looked up to him because those weren't easy choices. But I also saw the flip side, that creativity can also mean that you have to pay a rebellion tax. And the rebellion tax means that financially it can be really difficult, especially in New York City. That's where I grew up, watching my dad go through the highs and the lows of trying to make a living off his art. So the story that kind of got implanted in me was art is following your passion and your art is risky. It can mean that you have to financially suffer or go through it. So I knew creativity was always a part of what I did, especially I wrote. My father would be painting, I'd be writing. And so eventually the path found me. I gravitated more towards commercial creativity. So working in advertising and marketing and branding, it just felt, okay, I can be creative, but still be in this environment where it feels a bit safer to me and that is financially cushy. And I think that blocked certain versions of my creative expression. It limited it to a certain degree. And I realized, of course, as an adult later on, that my father is a gifted artist, but he's not a stellar businessman. So the story that I was telling myself wasn't necessarily true. It just became a story I told based on what I saw. And in writing the book, actually, it was part of me re-scripting that narrative. Because I did something, I created not just to build a business or just for commercially, I created hopefully to make an impact in the life of someone, to create something that sat outside of those confines. And that felt like one of those epiphany moments, like, whoa, I don't only get to channel my creativity into building my own business, I get to channel my creativity into making art that matters to me. I get to do that. And with that action, the script got ripped. And I think that's really important when it comes to stories that block our creativity. It's first becoming aware what stories they are. And there are many, I have other ones too. And then choosing to rewrite them through behavior.
And your own stories, but also some intimate and often bold stories of others. You really weave into this book. I think about this phrase from the therapy couch to the studio session. This idea, you talk about your own therapy maybe, but also I think one of the stories was fashion icon Betsy Johnson and really breaking through some of these old stories. What did these reveal about the creative process in general that listeners and readers of the book might not expect?
Betsy is she's absolutely fabulous. She is a creative icon, right? Fashion designer who really broke the norm and charted her own path and shook and shaped fashion in so many exciting ways. And there are two big insights that dropped out of speaking with her. One was that creativity requires a healthy dose of rebellion. So also to do something that no one else might have done before takes courage to chart your own path and to do things in a way that hasn't been done or that feels uniquely like you. It takes chutzpah. It takes courage. And the second thing was that despite her incredible fame and success, she also went through a period recently of wondering, what am I going to create next? I've done all the things. Like maybe I feel stuck or blocked. What's next for me? And I think that just reveals that we all go through these sort of moments where there's an extinction moment for what we used to do and how we used to do it ends. And there's like this void until we get to the next creative evolution. She's already in her next creative evolution. She started painting and she sent me a picture of her with her canvases in the background. And I knew she would come through with a new expression. So I think it was very humbling and beautiful, just a reminder that we're all figuring it out and we're all changeable and fluid beings. And sometimes one thing that used to work feels like, okay, it's time for something else. And it takes courage, no matter where you are in your creative path, whether you're an icon or you're someone who's just getting started. That's part of the journey. That's part of the ride. Creativity changes along with us.
Definitely. The thought of welcome to the creative club, be your own creative director. It sounds, hey, just follow your dreams. And there's a lot of myths behind, am I creative or not? Or even what you just mentioned about, can this be a business? But you also intertwine some neuroscience. There is a science behind creativity. What surprised you when you started getting into the research of creativity?
I had a few beautiful revelations, but the one that really stood out to me the most, because as a recovering speed queen from New York City, it was a message I also really needed to hear, was that the default mode network, which is also called the imagination network in the brain, is very correlated to creativity. So that network turns on when we're not focused on the task, or it's the thinking we do when we're not thinking. It's when we're daydreaming or our mind is wandering. We're not actually focused on trying to solve or create. And that network just is shown to be directly correlated to creativity and the importance of having rest and pause and just being able to take a step back from whatever we're creating, building, or making is just as important as the research or evaluation or focus solving mode that we find ourselves in. Because according to Wallace, who first developed the 4 stages of a creative thinking or creative process, we have preparation, which is more the control mode network, right? So we're actively preparing. Then we have incubation, which is what happens when we're not focused on the task and like ideas are percolating. We've done the research and dots are connecting under the surface. And then we have thirdly, illumination. And that's those beautiful eureka moments, like we're in the shower and it's, oh, got it. Or we're driving and something has happened and something has been bubbling underneath and there's been connections made and the idea just seemingly appears out of nowhere. And then the last stage is evaluation, back to the command center, the control mode network, where we evaluate the ideas and the eurekas, everything that has emerged, and make decisions about what would make the most sense going forward. Obviously, those two networks work together and are very interrelated, but the importance of also allowing things to marinate and to be through rest and daydreaming and mind wandering was a beautiful revelation to me. It just spoke to the need, especially in Western society, to also take a beat and how
Yes.
important that is for our creativity.
I am curious in that 4 stages. I have lived and breathed that process my whole career. And you were talking about the business commercial side of things. I've often had the debate with other creatives that incubation phase, the underappreciated incubation, can't be put on a deadline,
Yeah.
but it's due Thursday.
Yeah.
How do we reconcile that? And how did the creatives that have studied and referenced, how do you balance the it's due on a deadline? And I haven't come up with the idea yet. I haven't had that eureka moment yet.
As someone who worked in creative agencies for well over a decade, I can tell you that there's no easy answer. Hopefully, you're in an environment where you can get away from your desk, for one thing. That's a
Good
small
point. Good
behavioral
point.
change, right? Where
Yes.
you can say, I need to take a walk. I need to go get a matcha latte, take a walk
Go
around
to
the
the
park.
bookstore, go to the
Exactly.
right,
I'm
go to
going to
the
take
park.
half an hour. I'm going to go to a gallery. I'm going to just do something else or go to anything. Could be anything. And I think if we
But as
have
a
that
coffee shop owner, I would also suggest go to a coffee shop.
absolutely, go to a coffee shop, eavesdrop on someone's conversation. You never
Yes.
know, maybe
Yes.
something comes up. So if we can create more awareness around that, the importance of incubation and reflection, and that a lot of creative ideas don't happen when you're just sitting in front of your computer. They can, of course. Then we create a more flexible environment where we allow for at least pockets of incubation to happen. And sometimes the incubation is curtailed and you get what you get. Like I often would say, clients don't pay you to stay in the problem, but sometimes staying in the problem is the most fertile creative territory you can be in, rather than
Yes.
trying to solve it right away. So you find a middle ground. But if we can create environments, it doesn't have to be take a full day off if that's not possible, but we can create environments that cultivate creativity in
Sure.
different ways
There
that
are
don't break the bank.
well, and metaphysical ways of going to the mountains if you can't take a week off to go to the mountains, or whatever. Yeah, I
Absolutely.
get you. So I love this idea of being the creative director of your own life. And I also think about even going back to Tom Peters, you are your brand, the brand of you, create your own brand, that sort of thinking. Let's say somebody listening right now is ready to get unstuck. They've been unsure and they want to take that first step. I almost consider it interviewing yourself to be your creative director. But what would you ask yourself to be as the creative director of your life?
I would ask myself what scene I wanted to direct next or create next. What is the next scene that I would like to script? What is the set design? What's the score? What's the costume design? What's the script? So what moment, for example, it could be small, it could be big, but there's insight around it. What are you drawn to scene you're drawn to create next in your life, right? It could be, I want to put on my faded Guns N' Roses t-shirt and red lipstick and put on my favorite Billie Eilish track and just dance in my kitchen and like have my favorite drink next to me and look at this. Oh, this feels good. This feels like a scene. This is a moment I want to create and inhabit. And then there's insight around that. First, you're creating evidence that, of course, you're the creative director of your life. Look, you just created that moment for yourself. You just created that scene. So that's actually very empowering. It's a reminder. Second, get curious. It gives you insight about yourself. What is it you're drawn to create? Oh, if it's dancing, oh, maybe that's something you should do more of. Or if it's going to your coffee shop, maybe that's something you should do more of. What are you drawn to when you have the freedom to just create anything? And I think making it more like a micro moment makes it more manageable, because of course we can look at it from like in 1 year from now, if you were beyond your wildest imagination, like what would your life look like? And that's a beautiful question, but it's quite big. So
Yes.
we can also start with just the small. And I think that the small has a big impact.
The next scene. Love that. I want to highlight that. Listeners, hit the rewind button and go back a few seconds and let's listen to that again. Also, one of the myths is this break out of the box, think outside the box. Boy, how many times have we heard this phrase? But you've worked with brands and coached individuals and said, first, what is the box? Redesign the box, or I love this phrase, burn it down, burn down the box. How do we do this? What is the rewriting of the story involved?
That's a big question. It really depends. The way I work is on a very tailored individual basis. So it depends, what box are you in? Like, what does it feel like? What does it look like? When did it start feeling like a box? And what's stopping you from breaking out of it? What's keeping you inside? And if you were to break out, where would you want to go? What would you want to do? And so asking really powerful questions and inviting courage and curiosity into the space. I'm going to get a chance to, I think awareness goes a long way. So just being aware that there are actually cardboard walls around you that you probably stepped into or created, whether consciously or unconsciously. And the good news about that, it means if you created it, you could destroy it. So that's
Yes.
also empowering to, oh, okay, ooh, when did this happen? And what is it? And what's keeping me here?
Yes.
And then what might it take to get out? And what might I want to create when I'm out? If I'm not in a box, where am I? What does it look like? What does it smell like? What does it feel like? And so that's where we start. I love how I'm staring at the boxes behind you as we're speaking. The
Yes.
light boxes.
The
in
light
there.
boxes. That's
Yeah, interesting. So I think that's where we start.
very nice. I want to ask you more about your creative environment and where you get some inspiration. But first, I think this is a good place to let people know how to connect with you, learn more about your work, and find the book.
Yeah. Home base for me is Kollektiv Studio, spelled with a Danish twist. So it will be in the show notes. That's where you can find out how we co-create together, more about what I'm creating, more about the book. It's all there. And in terms of Welcome to the Creative Club, the audiobook is launching this week. So it is now available on Audible. I narrated it. It's a deeply personal book. So it felt
Yes.
like I had to be the one to do
Your
that.
voice. Yeah.
Yeah, that was also a very interesting creative process, but that's a longer story. Audible, Amazon, bookshop.org, Barnes and Noble.
Well, very exciting. And I love that. Maybe I can pick up on the subtitle of this book, Make Life Your Biggest Art Project. And I think about here, we're talking with you in Copenhagen. As I said, one of my favorite capitals, both from a, I guess, art stimulation and creative inspiration. One of the benefits of this podcast is we get to hear from people who live and work in these great cities. What is your source of inspiration there? Take us off of the tourist beaten track and say, where do you draw your inspiration there in Copenhagen?
There's a beautiful part of town by the water called Refshallen, and it's like an old shipping area, right? So it's not, if you don't know, it's far, it's not that far, but it's right by the water. And there's this little restaurant called La Banquina that's on the pier. If you will, it's not really a pier, but it has like a little boardwalk-ish, tiny, that goes into the water. So you could go there and have coffee, a glass of wine, my favorite's kombucha, and sit on the dock. And some people even just go jump in the water and go swimming. And they have a little sauna next to it. And it's a really beautiful place. And then right across, not that far from it, there's a museum called Copenhagen Contemporary. Oh, it's such a cool space. They have so many, it's like modern art, but different installations, and the space itself is inspiring. And it's just a lovely place to be. You bike ride there, you go see some art, you get immersed, you look at the water, you go to La Banquina, have a dip. If you wait for the weather in Copenhagen, you'll be waiting a long time. A dip.
So just go for it. Yeah.
Just go for it. Yeah. And really just enjoy. I think that's one of my favorite things to do.
Wonderful. Thanks for sharing that.
Of course.
Listeners, my guest has been Pia Leichter, And her book is Welcome to the Creative Club. What a great conversation, very rich in inspiration, but also refreshing from a kind of a just do it, but certainly get out of the box, burn down the box if you have to, and live your creative dreams. Thanks for sharing.
Thanks for having me, Mark. What a beautiful conversation. I hope to come to your coffee shop at some point in the not too distant future.
Yeah, come on by. And I
I
guess this
will.
is a good time for me to mention our episode is sponsored by our friends at White Cloud Coffee Roasters. They make all the coffee we serve in our shop here out of Eagle, Idaho, named and inspired for the White Cloud Mountains here in Idaho. But you can fuel your creative mornings with their handcrafted blends and enjoy 10% off your first order when you use the code CREATIVITY at checkout when you go to whitecloudcoffee.com. Be sure to subscribe, rate, and review your World of Creativity on your favorite podcast app. And then join us next time. We're going to continue these round the world travels to find out how we can get inspired and organize ideas and, most of all, launch our work out into the world. That's what it's all about. We'll be continuing to unlock your world of creativity. I'm Mark Stinson, and we'll see you next time.